In today's video, we're talking about the Page Justice Court. The Page Justice Court is a misdemeanor court. It's located in Coconino County in Arizona. We see a lot of people charged with crimes out of this court. So in this video, we're going to tell you a little bit more about the court itself. We'll tell you about the court's jurisdiction. We'll tell you about the prosecutors who are in charge of representing the government out of this court. We'll tell you a little bit more about the judge himself, Judge Roberts. So let's take a look at the court's jurisdiction. When I'm talking about jurisdiction, I'm talking about the court's geographic area, the boundaries over which this court has control or has authority. The reason why it's important to understand what the court's boundaries are is because if your case happened outside of those boundaries, but you were cited into Page, this court doesn't have any jurisdiction over you, and it could be ripe for an easy dismissal. So let's take a look at the court's jurisdiction. So you can see here, we have a map of the court's jurisdiction. It's all outlined and highlighted in blue with the major freeway that's running through the court circled there. It's the 89 freeway. And the 89 freeway has a lot of traffic that's running through there. A lot of people are going up north to visit the Grand Canyon. Horseshoe Bend's right in this area. There's a lot of sights to see up in around all of this area in northern Arizona, just on the border of Utah and Arizona. So a lot of people pass through here. And the Department of Public Safety knows that, so they are patrolling the 89 freeway going northbound and southbound in high force and in high volume, especially around the holidays when a lot of people are traveling. And so because of that, we see people cited for criminal speeding very, very frequently. Oftentimes they'll tack on reckless driving charge. Basically anything that's traffic related, we will see criminal charges filed for those different offenses. And when that happens, once you're cited out of this area, the police will turn it over to the prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor's office is the Coconino County Attorney's Office. Now, generally speaking, Coconino County is a little bit smaller of a jurisdiction. It's not as big as Maricopa County by any stretch, but Coconino County in general is not one of the smaller counties either. Covers a big part of Flagstaff and a lot of northern Arizona, so it's a bigger agency. They do have some pretty strict policies as it relates to some of their charges that they'll give you deviations on or give you plea agreements on. But by and large, we have a little bit more leeway when we work with Coconino County than we do with some of the other counties like Maricopa County or Yavapai County. A lot of the prosecutors there are a little bit more reasonable. Sometimes they will actually listen to our arguments and honor our deviation requests, but it's still something that's not automatic. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because sometimes people will think that they can just call the prosecutor's office or send a letter into the court, and this can be very problematic for you, especially out of this jurisdiction with Judge Roberts. So it's highly advised that you at least have a quick conversation with an attorney to see if you can get something done, because what you can end up doing is actually hurting your case. If you send a letter in or you try to negotiate with a prosecutor and that's denied, that goes in your file and that may make our job that much harder. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to resolve this thing on your own. It is criminal charges. They do have policies out of this county, which means that they have to abide by those policies. They will take a look at your case and they'll say you've been charged with this offense, with this DUI or this criminal speed, and because your speed is this, the plea deal is this, meaning there's very little leeway. So they're not going to just turn around and dismiss your case or reduce it down just because it's a first offense. If you follow, if you're outside of their policy for an automatic reduction, there's very little that you can get done. So just keep that in mind. We don't want you to do any more harm than is necessary when you're trying to resolve your case. So we're talking about the prosecutors. Now let's talk about the judge, Judge Roberts. Judge Roberts has been around for a very long time. He's not a licensed attorney in Arizona. He just keeps getting reelected over and over and over. So in order to be a justice of the peace in Arizona, you don't have to have gone to law school. You don't have to have passed a bar exam or go through character and fitness or any of that stuff. All you need to do is run for office and get elected. And Judge Roberts has done that multiple times. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad judge or a good judge. It just means he doesn't have a whole lot of legal training. Now, he's been doing it for a long time, so he's been in this court for quite a while. And so he's seen a lot of different things come through. But in our opinion, he's a little bit of a squirrely judge, which means you got to be very cautious on how you're dealing with him and this particular court. The reason why I say that is because we have had bad stories of people who will send letters into this court. So they'll send a letter into the court and say, hey, Judge, I'm sorry that I was going so fast. Can you give me a reduction? Can you give me a good deal? And this judge, in our previous experience, has accepted those letters as a plea of guilt. So without going through the formal plea process, without reading any of the person's rights or asking the person to waive any of those rights or going through any of the formalities that are required if a person's pleading guilty, the judge would just accept that person's letter as a guilty plea and then impose a fine and impose the sentence. So it's not a good thing. It's not a good situation because people will then be blindsided, and they have called us multiple times and actually hired us to reverse that, to send a letter in, to file a motion and say, Judge, that was an illegal plea deal, you're not allowed to do that, and then have that guilty plea vacated and rescheduled, and then we treat it as a normal case. But I want to caution you on that. People will think that they're just doing the right thing by apologizing and asking the judge for leniency and for forgiveness, when in reality, the judge can interpret that, not rightfully, but judge has interpreted that as a guilty plea, and now that can potentially go on your record. So be very, very careful when you're dealing with this judge. Also important to note, this judge was just recently reprimanded in Arizona for doing some sort of kind of conflict of interest type of stuff out of his court. What was going on is the judge was referring, or one of his bailiffs was actually receiving some business as a result of referrals from the court, driving schools or things where the bailiff was getting some sort of compensation for referrals that were made by the court, which is obviously a total conflict of interest and not particularly ethical. This judge was reprimanded for it. Hopefully that has changed, and hopefully this judge follows the rules a little bit more. There are some courts where we will advise people to file what's called a notice for a change of judge. That means that you can file a formal written motion within certain time frames and within certain limits and following the rules, where you can ask for a different judge. Depending on the specifics of your case, it may be something you want to consider. If you want to speak to our team about it, give us a call. We offer free case evaluations, so you really have nothing to lose. Give us a call. We'll have you come into the office, or if you're out of state, we'll set it telephonically and we'll run you through the facts of your case and make sure you understand how it will work if you've been cited out of the Page Justice Court. So give us a call. As I said, nothing to lose. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks for watching.